Hello there, I'm John, and today we are going to be visiting what some would call a watercolor master, Joe Dowden, who's going to be walking us through painting desert mountains and streams. This live art tutorial is a shorter prelude to Joe's 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar in a few weeks' time, and gives you a good taster of some of the things that he's going to be teaching in greater depth at the full event. And for those joining us live, you also get the opportunity of receiving a special 15% discount, which will launch later in the show. If this is your first time joining us, although you can just watch, these short classes are designed for you to speed paint along with. It's fast and furious, but complements our longer, more in-depth workshop where you can work through the techniques step by step and at a more steady pace. So without further ado, let's zoom to Joe now. As we journey to England, if you do want to give this speed painting session a go, the recommended materials and reference pictures can be found on our website video catalogue. You can find a direct link to our video library in the description below. Now, as we zoom in here, it's not looking quite as wintry as it probably is in real life, but I think I can see Joe out in his garden, but he's rushing back in. That's it, Joe. Nice to meet you. Hey, how are you?
Okay, very well. It's lovely weather here too. And I heard a few places in the USA. Minnesota, fantastic place for painters. Andy Evanson, I can think of. John Salmonen, love to go there one day. Maybe St. Paul or Minneapolis. I'd also love to go to Duluth, the home of Bob Dylan, but also the home of the world's greatest iron industry, the iron ranges in Mesoby history. So
you're so well read, Joe, and you know so many artists, and just your general knowledge. I bet you are a hard opponent to go against in any quiz show.
I don't know anything useful, John.
Now, it's great to be hosting you again, Joe. It's been a while. Did you have a good New Year and Christmas and everything?
I had a good holiday. I had a rest.
Had a bit of time off. No, well, that's really important. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can achieve today. But before we start, just a quick 30-second word on how today's live event's going to work. So first of all, we're going to walk through the preparation, and this will include finishing off the sketch that Joe's already started, some theory maybe, and applying the first layers of paint. Then while that dries, we're going to take the opportunity to see some examples of Joe's previous works of art for inspiration, as well as discuss his upcoming 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar at the beginning of next month. I'll also explain how you can grab yourself a special discount to join that as well. Finally, we'll complete the tutorial, after which, whether you can attend the live event or are watching a recording of it, you can share what you've done on our Facebook or Instagram page for comments and feedback. So without further ado, let's get back to Joe and we will make a start. So Joe, back with you.
The first thing I'm going to do is put a sky into this painting. I'm going to move this a little bit closer to the camera. It's a shiny photograph. This is an Arabian Wadi. Wadis are associated with areas that can be dry for years and years, and then the water pours down, brief rainfall, spreads across the desert, and everything comes to life. You can see them from the air as river-like marks in the sand in the great Arabian desert, the Rub al-Khali. And at the end of the Rub al-Khali, or the empty quarter, is this. These are the Hijaz, the Arabian mountains. And the largest number of wadis exist here. This wadi is unique. It's the only river in Arabia that reaches the sea. The Jordan doesn't reach the sea. The Jordan goes to the Dead Sea and dries up. The sea evaporates. This is basically a paradise. I did a painting of this last year, and it'll be in the International Watercolor Masters in May. I call it the Margins of Eden. That's detailed. This is rough and ready, same place. We're going to get started with the sky.
Brilliant. And we've just had a couple of comments. So Papillon from the sunny French Alps says hello. Same from Linda Ford as well. Nice to be with you and looking forward to it. And Sandra has said that she lives on the Iron Range. Bob Dylan grew up in Hibbing, which is 24 miles from her, and you're welcome to come up and visit her, and she'll take you on a tour. So that's very nice.
Absolutely, well.
Thank you.
And in this song, is it? I can't remember which one it is. North Country Blues, where the jobs disappeared and people hit the road, and they went down south, where people would take lower wages, and ultimately their jobs went all the way to Mexico.
That's brilliant. Right, so I'm conscious of the time, and we only have less than an hour. So let me put it back onto full screen. And
now this is an interesting mix. To get I want to get a grey blue for the sky, and I've mixed quinacridone gold with phthalo blue, which makes green. And you see, take my word for it, it's gone green. You can cancel out green with red. This is quinacridone magenta. So now we can get a grey blue, and there it is, a bit of phthalo blue and a bit of red. And I just want some value in the sky. This is actually a bright sunny day. It's not always sunny in this part. It can go to a very bright, hot haze. Everything is bright but grey, but when the sun comes out, it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to start by putting a layer of colour onto the sky. There we go. And then I'm going to leave that. I'd like a bright zone down there. So it goes virtually from dark there to almost nothing below. Next thing I'm going to do, so I'll probably start on these rocks down here, because I want to work parts of the painting that are dry. I don't want the paint running too much, but I want to take some basic proportions, and I want this rock to jut out a little bit more. I've got a very rough drawing that I've put down just to save some time. And so I've got my rock, big foreground rock there, and I'm going to check out some proportions from the photograph. This is a photo of the painting I did before, and I'm taking measurements. That seems to be about a third of the way up the painting. So if I go 1, 2, 3, it's a little bit lower in this one, but I think I'm going to give myself some more foreground by raising the bottom of the rock up. Every now and then something will happen to the camera. John will tell me and I'll get it back again.
Oh, where's the positive self-talk, Joe?
So the next thing I'm going to do is mix some colours for the rocks. And I want to use these three. This is quinacridone gold, phthalo blue, quinacridone magenta. One of my favourite colours or makes is M. Graham, and I've just invested in a whole lot of new tubes. Here's one of them, M. Graham, American firm from Oregon. The colours are absolutely brilliant. And the lids never stick on these tubes. They're almost unique, no matter how long you leave them. Very, very sticky, and they're very rich. These are Winsor & Newton, very good brand. So I've got my three colours there, and I'm going to start by mixing a grey. I'll try and put this up here. Put it there. And I'm going to raise the board slightly. What I'm going to do is get all the rocks in place, and then I'm going to go back to the distance and put in the mountains. This is quinacridone magenta. Any of the quinacridone reds will do though. Magenta, red, ruby, rose, you name it. This is quinacridone gold, fantastically strong colour, and phthalo blues over here. And with these three, I'm going to make the greys for the rocks.
So Karen said that she's just started using M. Graham and they are amazing. Very good price at Jackson's Art. And later I'll show you on our website, we've got a special link that gives you 10% off Jackson's, so you can get them at an even better price. And then Trina said that she loves M. Graham paints and the company is wonderful and actually just up the road from her, which is fantastic. So maybe Trina can get them at even better prices if they're just up the road. That'd be fantastic. You could send them all over to us, Trina. And then Gary Graham asked about the colours, but hopefully you heard that because Joe just repeated them just then. And Christina asked, if you don't have quinacridone gold, what could she use?
Burnt sienna and cobalt blue. It's a very reliable and easy couplet. Burnt sienna and cobalt blue, and for darker greys, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And you can then when you come to the black, use Payne's grey for the intense darks. I use intense darks for my paintings. The only colours that will do it for me are neutral tint and Payne's grey, intensely dark, much darker, for example, than ivory black or ivory black. I'm trying to think of another black. But I can't right now. But Payne's grey Payne's grey neutral tint. So I've made a grey blue colour. I'm going to make that slightly more violet, and I want to start painting in these limestone rocks. I've got an original photo that I took in this wadi. I'm going to use that as well. So first, I'm going to put the painting on slightly more of a tilt. Let's get that out of the way so you can see it. And I've got plenty of colour to mix. And I'm going to start to brush colour loosely across. Plenty of colour on the palette. And you'll notice that I do a lot of mixing. And I'd say about 70% of the time I'm painting, I'm mixing colour. 70% mixing, about 20% actually putting it on. I'm going to fold the palette, it's quicker. I've got to put some more magenta on. Need a tremendous amount of paint, and the paint needs to flow. Getting hot in here. I'm just going to turn the fire off. And I'm going to let the brush do the work. I use sables, natural fibre. If you're in the USA, like me, you can get rosemary brushes, is what I use. They're fantastic. I'm not in a business arrangement with her at all. I'd like to be free to just say what I think are the best paints and brushes and so on. And at the moment I'm on Arches, 140 pound or 300 GSM rough, and rosemary sables. So now I'm just putting the profile of this rock in with a light grey, and I want to darken that up. Let's put the palette back so you can see what I'm doing. That's green. What cancels green out? The answer is red. Opposite on the colour wheel. You find the opposite on the colour wheel. That's quite red. Now I want to add blue, phthalo blue. I need more phthalo blue. So you can see how you can creep up on any grey like this. I'm just going to want it bluer, and then I just want to test it out, and making it slightly bluer and deep, a bit more red, a bit more blue, lots of mixing. See what that looks like. That's fine.
Now Sue's asked, where can I buy some palettes like yours, Joe, please? And I would imagine it's probably a kitchen or homeware store.
Yeah, it is. We've got a store down here in the south of England called Robert Dias. There's only 170 stores, so I guess you try Walmart. They're brilliant. Square sandwich plates, rectangular sandwich plates.
Just literally a ceramic or porcelain.
They'll be about, I imagine they'll be about $4, $2.99 here, £2.99, £3. There's another one. They're absolutely brilliant. Much cheaper than the artist palette. But there is a fantastic kind of plastic palette, square or rectangular. You can, whichever you prefer, from an American manufacturer. I can't remember who made it. I've got to look it up. But if anybody out there knows, it's got a big square in the middle and the little squares around the outside, and you can hold it in your hand like that underneath. The first time I saw it was a brilliant Thai painter using it, and I asked him about it, and he wrote it down for me. I saw him at Fabriano. I thought, that's fantastic. I must get one of those for painting plein air. The plastic was just right for mixing color on, which most plastics aren't. So now I'm just going to start to put the warm tones in this rock, and then we're going to get on with all the other rocks around the Wadi. These are enormous limestone boulders, some of which have been there for thousands of years, but others can have been shifted literally by the previous year's flood. And although this is Arabia, they have a monsoon there. They don't call it the monsoon, it's called the Kharif. And cooling air from the Indian Ocean, from the Gulf of Oman, cools the air down over the mountains, and if rain pours down on the mountains, it comes crashing down these canyons. Very, very dangerous. There are times when walkers are absolutely told to stay out of the wadis. There's no warning.
Now, just to confirm, I don't think you have used any masking fluid, have you? You've just literally been painting around the reserved whites.
Yeah, that's it. I haven't got time for masking today. We just want to get the colour on, and I'll find that as I start to get a feel for it, things will speed up a lot as well. So now I'm going to start to get all of these, this rocky zone over here, over to the right. And you can do this rough and ready like this. This is dragging the brush. I'll find an extreme example of this. Here is a sable. This is a big sable. And you see it's got a belly. You see it's wider in the middle than at the bottom and the top. You can't duplicate that with synthetic. Sable fibers are tapered both ends. And the best solution with making them is the person who buys the sable assembles the brush, because all the fibers are going to be the right way round from sourcing to putting in the brush. Of course, they're in bunches and you can see which way around they go. But this is made by the person whose name is on there. And that's a big, big plus. That's why I use sable, because you can use this fat part to brush sideways. Very hard on a synthetic.
Karen just wanted to confirm the warm colour at the bottom that you painted there. What did you use?
I'm using the same mix, quinacridone gold, quinacridone magenta, and a tiny bit of blue to make it go a bit grayer. And I'm going to just use this photo now to get the general feel of this wadi. So a lot of rock sticking up, a lot of ground sticking up. One of the reasons that these wadis are so incredibly beautiful is that they are a historic coral reef. So they're limestone from a coral reef, and on top are these mountains here. And this is probably wind-blown sand from the Great Arabian Desert. It's as red as anything, shows up every possible color in different lights. So we've got that. Now I'm starting to experiment with colors a little bit, and I'm wondering what Hooker's green is like. I haven't used it for years, so I drive my painting with my demonstrations. I experiment when I'm demonstrating, and I'd love to see what this Hooker's green does. So I'm just going to get a little bit, see what that's like. It's a bit dull. I've got another green I use occasionally, azo green. So I'm just going to try azo green. I got some out earlier. Here we are. Green gold or azo green, depending which manufacturer it is, but it's the same stuff. It's a very, very vibrant powerful green. Looks yellow, doesn't it? I wonder what happens if I mix those two together. Well, that's interesting. Hookers and azo. So I'm going to remember this mix. And there's no reason why I shouldn't do this while I'm demonstrating and learn about colour while I'm demonstrating. So that looks okay. That's good enough. Got some grass here. They're big, thick, dense reeds. These wadis are about 100 yards or 100 meters wide in a relentless desert. You can walk 15 miles from this wadi over the top of the mountain and down into another wadi called Bani Khalid. That's how they pronounce it. And it's only 15 miles, but they tell you to take 30 liters of water with you. There's no water up there at all. And if you get caught out overnight, you need 15 liters a day. You need the second 15 liters. So
Louise said that she got caught with her class in a flash flood in a wadi in the Negev desert in Israel. Very dangerous. Oh gosh, Louise. Fortunately, you made it out.
The wadis in the Negev are incredibly dangerous. Wicked marauding bands or people who were trying to kill you in ancient writings were referred to as flash floods.
Oh yeah, she said she almost slipped to her death. Oh gosh, Louise.
Yeah, it's terribly dangerous. It's a primary method that Westerners use for getting themselves killed. Sadly.
Oh my God.
They are warned and warned. There's one place, and I think it's Mazara. You're told north of Mazara, I'll remember the name of the wadi Dequa, which it literally means the wadi devil or demon. They say if you see a cloud, get out of the wadi, which is inconvenient because you use the wadis for traveling. A famous British explorer, I've forgotten his name, traveled through the Wadi Dequa to get from Arabia to the Indian Ocean. And he said it was unbelievable. He said the landscape was just wrought. So there we go. We've got some grass in there. And I want to speed up now if I can. I find when you paint, you progressively get faster. I like to use intense color. I'm always headed away from weak and wishy-washy watercolor. The USA has a fantastic tradition going back to the 19th century of brilliantly powerful watercolor painters. So now we're just going to take this grass up and I'm going to start to put in, where are we with the sky? That's getting drier. So back to the, let me put that here. I should be showing you the colors I'm using. Quinacridone magenta. I did an entire painting with these three colors and it looks incredibly colorful. Quinacridone magenta, quinacridone gold, phthalo blue, although I did use a little bit of cobalt blue as well for some of the more subtle grays, and I also used Payne's gray for the darks, but that was the total color count, 5 colors, but mainly these three. You can do absolutely anything with these 3 colors. And they replaced the traditional burnt sienna cobalt blue, which so many people use for everything because it's so wonderfully versatile and beautiful. But the thing is, you see it so much that it doesn't have the same impact among people who are familiar with watercolor. So I'm trying to move away from those, I'm always trying to move away from those familiar mixes. I don't have a limited palette deliberately, I have an unlimited palette. It's a nuisance sometimes. So now I just want to see whether I can get away with painting the mountain. I just
Now, those textures that you've created with, I guess you've used the side of your brush, but are you also using rough textured paper so that it skims over?
yeah, that's a brilliant question, John. Thanks for asking. I am. I'm using Arches Rough, £300, sorry, £140, and that's the optimal paper I've found. Now I'm going to put the mountains in. It's dry enough. I'm going to use my same mix again, I think, the phthalo blue, but I'm going to get a clean mix. So I'm going to do it on another palette so I can really concentrate on getting these mountain colors. And I want the mountain colors to change a lot. So I want a main master color, or kind of a mother color, I suppose. And then put it up there so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got my phthalo blue again. I want to keep the palette count down here. I'm always doing mountains in cobalt blue and ultramarine blue. Well, this time I want to move away from that, and I'd like to do it with phthalo blue instead. There aren't many blues. You haven't got much latitude. So we've got that. Let me just show you a comparison with the photograph. There's a blue I've mixed with phthalo blue and magenta against the painting, against the photo rather, the original. Well, it's obvious that it's much bluer. So I'm going to make it this beautiful subtle grey by again adding quinacridone gold. And that will make it green because quinacridone gold is quite a greenish gold. There we go. It was already in the ballpark though for the color. So now by comparing it to photos are so useful because they're a flat surface and you can match something up to it. Somebody told me once you're not allowed to paint from photographs. You can ask questions and say why not, but I want to get on with my painting, so I just think it's nonsense. What's you can paint from a photograph? So there we go. It doesn't mean you can't paint from. I think they felt that they were almost superstitious about it. They felt it would damage your art, and you'd be damaged by painting from a photograph. But a lot of it comes from old art school teaching of about 80 or 90 years ago when they were having a struggle coming to terms with photography. But I'm still just battling to get this color how I want it. And when I've got it, then I want a few variations. So I've almost got it. I'm going to tighten that up. This is a tripod and I haven't quite tightened the arm on it. So that's done now. Thank goodness for adrenaline.
Now we're sort of at around the halfway mark, Joe. So I'm going to let you lead me into when you think the perfect time for the break is.
What I'm going to do is just really get a move on now. All my paintings start slowly and finish fast. That's an understatement. And I'm going to just make my warm colors now that I want to literally drop into these mountains, join them up with the rocks on the right. And the first thing I'm going to do is a helpful procedure for painting mountains. This mountain on this painting is very hard edged. I don't want that. I want to get it soft edged, but with a sharp edge, but a kind of a distant, misty look, because if they look distant and misty, they'll look massive. Now, I don't want them to be soft edged. I just want them to have this kind of misty look. One word is limpid. I'm trying to think of there's quite a few American USA artists. I'm trying to think of a great USA painter who did this. There's so many of them. Robert Highsmith, actually. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. Tell me if you've heard of him. He's very, very good at these. And Andy Evanson, I would say. He paints in Minnesota because that's where he lives. And he paints a lot on Catalina Island, which I'd never even heard of before I saw his paintings. Right, now what I've done is I've wet these mountains up to the top, and I'm doing a detailed, accurate line. It's just got all the little rugged indentations, and I'm painting them with a brush. And this is a fantastically useful way to paint mountains. So I'm just redefining the mountain's edge and making sure there's enough water in there. And I'm trying to see, I'm going to put some lights on. If you notice, it's gone brighter there. So I've just redefined the mountain edge. Now I can actually see it. So what I'm going to do is apply the color just away from the edge. And as it goes on, I can also play with it and change it a little bit. I want a smaller brush, and I need a little bit more paint density. So I'm mixing as I go. Mixing color, just trying to get it not just mixed right, but strong. So that's very gray, tiny bit more blue in there. Tiny bit more magenta, and that's what I want. That's very strong, but that'll do. So now I'm painting just below the edge of the top. More paint on the brush. I keep putting more paint on the brush. I'm going to use the photo here for the reference to the color.
Oh, Manette said when you were thinking about that artist, was it Randy Hale by any chance?
No, now there's someone I need to look up, isn't it? Because I don't know him. So I must go and look up Randy Hale. Better write that down because I never remember. Randy Hale. I'm taking it's H-A-Y-L-E?
H-A-L-E.
H-A-L-E. Right. Well, that's written down now, so I can refer to that, find out what he's all about. That'd be interesting. Thank you.
We've hosted him a few times actually on our channel, so.
Well, I really should know him. It's so good. Just come across an amazingly brilliant Canadian painter, James Cole or Crowell, Carl, absolutely brilliant, but I've just forgotten his surname. Right, that's my top of the mountain painting. Now, I'm just hoping that as it dries, the color will advance toward the edge. Let me just tighten that again. There we go.
Now, while we wait for that to dry, should we have this little break, Joe? Because I'm conscious that I don't want to leave it any too much longer, because otherwise.
Yeah, yes? That's a good idea.
Okay, perfect. So that's brilliant. What I love about Joe is he talks about the subject that he's painting, he knows so much about, that the reason why it formed and where it was and context with everything else, and it just paints that whole picture, which is a really nice thing when you're painting something to fully understand it. I think it gives a greater depth to your painting. So now, I know Joe's still tinkering, but I'm wanting him to just take a quick pause because I'd like to have a look at some of his previous works of art to give us a little bit of inspiration on some of the things he's been working on.
What I've just got to do is I've got to get this on to a finishing edge here somewhere, and then I'm there. So because this is an edge that needs controlling, I just need to bring this down to a point where I'm safe to stop. So that's my edge stopped there. And now, where there's a hard edge here, valuable lesson, I'm going to tip it the other way now. And that might even help the paint along the top, pick out the top of the mountains. I didn't mention, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm tilting it the other way. I might get a little back run, or Brits call it a cauliflower. But what I'm doing is just making sure the mountain has a soft edge with the land. Now I'll get the paintings out. So
Okay, perfect. So now round two, we will have a look at what Joe's pulled together, just so to give us a little bit of a flavour of some of the things he's been doing recently.
this is the
Great. So this was a workshop, a real life workshop you did recently, wasn't it?
yeah, that's right. Yes, it's brilliant art society in Henfield, one of the best art societies I've ever been to. Henfield is one of those little English towns I think a lot of our cousins from the US would absolutely love. We don't appreciate them enough. One of the towns I work in has the oldest petrol station in the world. Now, we call them petrol stations. Everyone else using English calls them gas stations, so we'll call it that. It's the oldest gas station in the world. It's so old that Henry VIII could have filled up his truck there if he'd had one. And
Wow.
how that is, I don't know. But the petrol station building, the timbers have been dated to 1450, and they're second-hand ship's timbers. So that's quite near this place here. This actually is the New Forest. Is it not the New Forest? The Ashdown Forest.
Joe, I'm going to cut in. Let's not give all the back. We can do that in the workshop and give all the background about, because otherwise we're never going to finish this.
Yeah, I'll get you another one. This is the one I mentioned before. I think we had a look at this.
Yeah, so this is almost like a board with a presentation board with loads of his paintings on, which is great. And we can have a look. So these, some of them look almost photorealistic, but they are all his paintings.
So you can see where the top left is. That's Venice. Nice contrast. This is the outskirts of Manchester, the famous British institution, the chip shop. Those two have just come out of the chip shop. And I shouted at them because they heard the camera go off with a great clunk based on the camera. It's my granddaughter.
That's lovely. You've caught the soft wool around the hood edge. You've caught that really well, and the hair, the way that's coming through, the light's coming through the hair, lovely.
Yeah, it's just sort of looking at what's there, you know.
Yeah.
This is the same wadi we're doing. It's a perfect rock pool.
Yeah.
It takes ages to go and find them in the right light and get the images. So you've got quite a few there. You can see there's another one of that same wadi, half a mile away.
And that picture at the top right there, it almost looks like a photo of you sketching or painting with the easel. Is that is a painting?
Now this is a painting by Phil Kingsbury, an artist called Phil Kingsbury.
Okay.
He lives at number 54 in my road. And don't tell him if you meet him, but he is a much better painter than me. And
you've included his painting on. I
put his painting in, yeah. He actually had two paintings taped off, and I thought that didn't make sense in the picture. So I just copied his painting. There you go. I haven't even paid him royalties. Croatia. And there you go. A nice English traffic jam.
Yeah, that's great. You've caught the light so well there.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe a traffic jam would be beautiful, would you? But it is.
No.
And there you go. Lots of bits and pieces. Lots of very ordinary scenes. That's just a road to someone's house. Their private drive.
Wow, they look amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those with us, Joe.
There you go.
And let me know in the comments which painting. There were quite a few there. Normally I ask them to select 3 or 4, but we had a whole board full of them. But let me know which one really stood out to you. What did you like about it and why? That'd be great, and I can feed that back to Joe in a minute. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're loving the art on display today, which if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. We'd both really appreciate you hitting the thumbs up button. YouTube then recommends the show to more people, and it helps with our mission of trying to inspire everyone to give art a try, young and old alike. So thank you in advance. Now let's have a quick chat with Joe about his upcoming workshop to discuss what we're actually going to be covering at the beginning of February. Our longer 2 to 3 hour workshops, as I've previously said, provide a different experience. It's more time to properly explore the techniques, listen to the stories, while also completing a full painting from start to finish. And during our workshops, you can speak directly to Joe, as well as receive feedback on your art throughout the event. You then get feedback also after the show once you're ready to share your complete painting. So it's a complete package. Joe, what are we going to be painting in the workshop?
This is an interesting one because it's entirely based on a plein air painting I did in Thailand. We're at a wonderful sort of exhibition where lots of artists from all over the world were invited, and I got to meet Stan Miller. Actually, I was working near him. Stan is a fantastic painter from Spokane. I don't know how you pronounce it. Spokane, Washington, state of Washington. So that's what we're painting. I just painted that in situ. It's a park in Thailand, and quite honestly, it could have been St James's Park in London. I just needed something I could enjoy painting.
Yeah.
And
so we're going to be using that as that photo as our inspiration for doing
that's it.
Doing the full workshop. Lovely.
Bigger photo. That's what we're doing.
Great. Oh, it looks a lovely scene. Brilliant. So really looking forward to that. And if you're interested in joining us for the workshop, it's taking place on Thursday, the 3rd of February at 3:30 in the UK time in the afternoon. To book your place, you can either click the YouTube pop-out link, which will appear just here, or visit our website shopkeeparty.com. I'll also share my screen now and show you how you can book. So you simply visit shopkeeparty.com. You click on the live events tab in the menu, scroll down, and you'll see Joe's event on the 3rd of Feb just there. Click on the see details button, and it then gives you a little bit more information about some of the things that Joe's just covered, including the reference photo, and all these things will be sent to you the day before the event so that you can print them all off. Recommended materials, there's that 10% off link from Jackson's Art that I talked about. Then if you scroll up, there's the book ticket, and you can visit the artist shop just there, and that's where you can then purchase the ticket, either the live webinar ticket or the video tutorial if you can't make the live event. If you can do the live event, you can also purchase the video at the same time, and we give you a big discount on the video price there. Add it to cart, check out, and although it's in pounds, depending on what currency you use, it'll be converted after checkout to your local currency. If you do order the video, you can head over to our video library at any time in the future, and you can search by artist, so find Joe on there, and that'll just pull up all his videos, and you can then have a look at the class information and materials again. If you haven't purchased it already, you can purchase it there and then watch it on there, so you can find and you can see all Joe's other workshops and events that he's done over time on that library as well. So hopefully that has helped. Now, as mentioned earlier, our patrons can use a special link on our live events page that gives them 15% off all our workshops. However, if you're joining this event live, I'm also going to paste a special link to that 15% discount in the chat now so that you can take advantage of it. So let me just do that right now. There we go. It'll be up just for the next 30 minutes or so, so make sure you click it before the time runs out to take advantage of it. Right, let's get back. We're running a little bit. We've got quite tight for time. I'm sure Joe's been fiddling while we've been talking anyway. So let's go back and we'll see whether we can finish this speed painting. It really will be speed painting. I can see you've started to paint in the top of the trees.
Yeah, I put the tops in, and they're blurred against the mountains. They're hard against the sky. Strangely, at a glance, that's exactly what they look like. Watercolor's just so brilliant because it does so many things you want it to do if you let it, if you don't just try and do a detail-accurate illustration with it. I've often thought that, you know, when I do stuff like that, really nitpicking the accurate, I ought to use gouache, not watercolor. Watercolor is a beast, and it can never quite be tamed. But if you let it do what it wants, it'll do just brilliant things. And here, blurred against the mountains, going to put a bit more color in. Need more color on the brush.
Now, we've had a bit of feedback from some of your paintings there. So Karen said, oh, wow, Gorgeous. Glad I've signed up for Joe's long workshop.
Oh, dear.
Karen, I can't believe that. Trina, oh, John, you know he can finish in 10 seconds flat.
I don't know that, but
And Trina liked the traffic jam and many, many others. Diana said, loved the one of your granddaughter. Interesting angle and not a direct face on view. Much more casual composition. Excellent. And then Karen, I signed up. Karen, in the trees, blue and yellow. Deanna, just a lovely glow to your paintings. I'm guessing it's that fabulous Queen Gold in use. So, some
yeah,
great feedback. Thank you.
yeah, well spotted. So I've got my green gold here, and I'm just going to try and finish off the tops of the rocks by painting the green grass down onto the top edge of the rocks. So I'm going to define the rocks like that. I've just literally drawn round them. I'm leaving a few whites and lights in there. I want to do some horizontal lines under the grass because that's the ground. And then I need to get some intense dark from Payne's Grey and dump that in so that we've got the shadow under the grass. And then I'm just going to go for the water. So, and I have to remind myself of, I've said it before, I know in one of these sessions, but I have to remind myself of Amit Kapoor's great maxim, stop at 70%. Painting's happier, stop at 70%. I'm just going to touch in those rocks. I've got to do something, otherwise they don't make sense. And then I'm going to put in the water. How many more minutes have I got left, John?
Right. I would say you've got 8 minutes.
Okay, well, that's more than enough to do the water. So I've got my big palette here with all the color in it. So I'm going to use that to paint the water. And I've literally got all the colors that are in the water. The main thing, the main battle is to have the colors to hand. So I'm just going to rotate those up, those two. Magenta, quinacridone, quinacridone magenta, quinacridone gold, and phthalo blue. So the main battle is to have enough color. Putting more phthalo blue there. I've got some Payne's Grey there for darkness, magenta, and I definitely need to have more quinacridone gold. Now, I'm actually going to look at this photo upside down. You look at stuff upside down, I find especially I've been looking at it for a long time, it's more colorful and you can see more. So I look at stuff upside down.
You also use a rear view mirror, don't you, of a car? A side view mirror.
Yeah. We, in Britain, we shouldn't have bothered making cars. They were absolutely dreadful. I think this was a Hillman Hunter wing mirror. Stuck them out on the wings, but it was brilliant for reversing. You didn't get through a narrow gap. Wing mirrors, you could always see exactly whether you had you were a millimeter of space, you could see it. Anyway, there you go. I've had it so long, I can't remember what it came off.
And so you're continually kind of looking at the painting in the reflection because that gives you a slightly different. So
Actually,
it's another
slant.
slant.
It just tells me what's going on.
Yeah.
I can see my mountains didn't ever pick out that hard line, but it did in one little place. It's just picked out the hard edge of the mountain there. So now what I'm going to do is I've wet the whole thing with the hake brush. I've got a hard edge reflection up there, and I just need to get a lot of color in very quickly. So I'm going to hold the palette. We'll have to work this more or less horizontally. The board's more or less horizontal. So that's my base color for the water. It's not going to be dark enough. I'm going to have to pile in more color. I'm going to change the color over here. And as we go up here, it heads toward blue. It's all gray. The whole thing is basically gray, but it's blue-gray there and goldy gray here, for want of a better word. Now I need some darkness in it. So I'm just going to go back to those colors and mixing, and darken it up here. As long as it stays wet, it'll be happy. So it needs a lot of water, but above all, it needs to be wet. So I'm just judging the density of the color is key. Right, now what I'm going to do is put it on a slight tilt to let the color run down. The more color I've got on the palette, the less work I have putting it onto the paper. So I've given it a bit of a tilt and let it run down. I'm not going to fall for this one again. I've tightened up my board. Magenta. Too much wet color in there, so I'm going to tip that off the palette into another one, because I need rich dark color. More magenta. So it's just a tremendous amount of color, basically. That seems okay. Here's a little trick. You look at the painting through an aperture, except I almost can't. But I've done that there, and I check it with the photo. Well, that's about the same value. You create a tiny hole in the back of an old photograph, and you put that over the value you're trying to copy. And it's the antidote to making things too pale. So now I'm going to probably have to dry it to do the next stage. But before I do that, I just want to darken this up slightly. I'm mixing as fast as I can now because I'm aware of the time.
You got loads. You've got at least 120 seconds.
Right. Well, this is the fun part now. So I'm going to dry this up to a point, and right, now I'm going to put wet color in. So I'm going to put these rocks in wet, roughly where they are. I can see there's one there. There's one there. I'm effectively painting around the rocks. And I want those rocks to be lighter than the surrounding area. This is the next trick. It just involves getting some water into the painting as fast as possible and hoping that it does some interesting things. And now we've got the top of that rock modelled by the edge of the wadi there, the edge of this rock. And now we've got some darkness in there. I want to get the top reflection in now, so we're going to just use a lot more gold, quinacridone gold, and it's very nearly finished. Quinacridone gold. So we're going to paint the reflection down into the wadi. And we're going to do a few zigzags up into the distance. So that's the wadi flowing away into the distance. Down here, keep it wet though. If you don't keep it wet, it dies. And
We just had a comment from Lenore saying, what a splendid tip Joe just gave us, those little holes to look through to get the values. I agree,
yeah,
Lenore.
I find that
As
really
you can probably tell, because he's given us 2 or 3 brilliant tips during this session, he's got a lot more where that came from.
right. Now I'm going to dry it and finish it.
Sandra says, this is very exciting. I know, it's...
More water in, so it creates more impact.
And you learn so much about the subject as well while you're at it. So it's...
Now I'm actually going to spatter some darks in. I need a lot of paint for this. I need to find my Payne's grey, and I want to see what it'll do while it's still wet. Don't quite know. I don't want any collateral damage.
Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to bring things to a close, but I'll still show this screen on the monitor so people can see that. It's coming to the end, but how have you been getting on during this hour? It's fast-paced, isn't it? And as we near the end of the show, if you've got any words of thanks that you want me to pass on to Joe, now's your time to write them down for me on the Q&A. I think we've had a lot of engagement. Sorry if I've not been able to ask your question. We had so much, as you know, so much limited time in this short class, and that's the whole point of the longer workshop. Also, Joe and I would love to see what you've created from this class, and the post relating to it is on our Facebook page. So search for Shopkeep Arty and put it up there. If you follow Shopkeep Arty on Facebook as well, just follow it. You'll get notified when we put new posts on there relating to the different classes, and then go and have a look at some of the art that people post there. Give them a like, thumbs up, or a positive comment. It's a really nice community thing that we have going on there as well, so that would be lovely. Now, let's have a look at how we're doing. Joe is working fast and furious. So as we come to the end of the show, let me just go back to Joe and I'll read some of the comments that you have put. So Suhead said, thanks, Joe. Brilliant as always. Lenore said, a splendid session. I may even turn to watercolours rather than oils. Oh, Lenore. Bobby said, thanks, Joe. I think my favourite part is the turquoise reflection in the water. Love the little hole to get values as well. Diana said, thanks so much, gentlemen. It was a whirlwind demo and so much fun. I know, I'm exhausted. Alex said, and I wasn't even painting. Thanks for an informative demo, said Alex. Karen, oh wow, fantastic as always. I've learned so much. Speed painting is not my forte, so we'll have a go now. Thank you so much, Joe. Papillon from the French Alps said, great class, so many tips. Thank you so much. Sandra, love the colours and subject matter. Can't wait to be in the class. Karen, love learning your mixing technique. Great work. Thanks. Wendy said, thanks so much. Such control of the medium. Linda, very lovely. Thank you. Lenny, love the demo and listening to Joe. So much knowledge. I know, Lenny. I would not want to go up against Joe in a quiz, I'll tell you that much. He would beat me hands down. Jay Perry, do you always buy paint in small tubes, is the question, and they loved the workshop. Do you typically buy in the small tubes in your watercolors, Joe?
I get these tubes, the 15 mil.
Yeah.
With oil painting, no. In fact, the oil painters out there, I go to the US again, the maestros of color. Michael Harding, they're just fabulous. They're up there with the best in the world. Van Gogh, an Italian brand, a couple of French ones. These, though, the smaller tubes are the best value.
Right.
And beware of large tubes that are cheap.
Yeah.
But there is a very good, again, there's a US brand, Da Vinci. Their larger tubes are pretty good. I can almost see it over there. A large, oh, I've got it here. No, I haven't. No, that's another one. Best value. M. Graham, Winsor & Newton are great as well. I love experimenting with different brands. So,
yeah, no, that's brilliant. And we're actually going to be covering, so at the beginning of next month, we've got a special show all about brushes, and we've been collecting and collating feedback from a number of professionals around the world on their preferences for brushes and why, and what's their go-to brushes. So that's going to be a great show. But we're also going to be doing one, doing one on paper, but we're also going to be doing one on paints in the coming months, so stay tuned to that. So that will definitely be one of the paints that we showcase there. Next week we're in Texas with Al Klein to paint a ram, and Sue Bradley and Howard Jones in the UK to paint a flamenco dancer and a riverside scene respectively, not together. So I hope you can join me then. If not, don't forget you can visit our video library. Link is in the description, where you can catch up on hundreds of hours of art tutorials from almost 100 professional artists around the world. So there we have it, the end of a show. Thanks for joining me, and obviously thanks to Joe, which we'll say thank you to now. It's been a pleasure hosting you today, Joe. Thank you so much, and thank you for all those lovely tips and everything. It's been a really great, and I can't wait for the workshop. And obviously you get a big round of applause. And we'll finish on the painting. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for your time.